Welcome into 11 Personnel. Nick Roush and Adam Luckett here with you in the middle of the grind that is spring practice, where Saturday the Wildcats will open their doors to the practice facility to let fans come in, take a sneak peek of what the Kentucky football team is going to bring to the table this fall. We'll get you prepared for that, talk about what's happened over the last week, and tell you about our good friends at Monticello Bank, proud presenters of 11 Personnel. They know what they're doing over there because they've been doing it for 128 years. Wherever the Wildcats go, they're right there with you with the Go NBC mobile app. Lets you bank at home, on the road, and if you want to come see them in person, right? A little friendly service, a little, hey, how you doing? They have 21 branches in 14 different markets. Monticello Bank, where people matter, competitive loans, competitive deposit rates, and a wide variety of customer-focused financial service, which makes the numbers on your side of life a little bit easier. Visit us on the web, nbcbank.com, Monticello Bank, where people matter. Remember, FDIC, equal housing lender. Luckett, you got to pick up some swag here at KS office. Like it's a sharp looking hat, and it's big enough to fit our big bucket heads. I know
That's good.
It's hard to find those sometimes. We can make it work with Monticello Bank. How is that big noggin of yours doing? You've been burning and turning and KSR plussing, grinding away.
I've been. It's a rough life, Nick. Watch football and write about football. I don't know how I do it. I really don't. I mean, it's just a grind sometimes, but it's a good grind. And, sometimes we get into a little lulls here, right? And I think the team got into a little lull on Saturday. But luckily, we all have something to look forward to on this upcoming Saturday. You get to see practice and to actually see it and see what's happening, see some proof of concept a little bit, I think is good. And but there is an upset head coach. At least there was last weekend.
And the thing is, too, is we
and I laugh because me and you were there like every damn day last week, right? And it was not like there was some good stuff, but nothing like super exciting. The one day me or you do not go, we get just Stoops just going off. Was lit up like a Christmas tree. So yeah, that's how that works sometimes.
Which you can kind of sense it when we were there for Pro Day on Friday. Stoops kind of talked about, not wanting to praise these guys too much, right? Like they still got to put it on the field. We got to have I forget what was it? We got to have a chip on our shoulder or something like that. Like you could kind of sense it coming, but
yeah, I have a theory on that.
Okay, well, let's hear it. You don't have to use all the expletives Stoops did with that tongue lashing because these happen from time to time, right? Like you can almost kind of time them up. Middle of spring practice, middle of fall camp, you get complacent. Stoops rips their ass into the media. He did crank it up a few more notches. He was dropping some words we're not supposed to say. It was a little bit extra on that tongue lashing, but nevertheless, like I was not disheartened by any means. Like they were due. They were due for one.
Yeah, let's just rewind a little bit here. Like last year, Nick, there was, I think, 3 or 4 games where Stoops, in the immediate press conference after the game, was upset at how his team played. And it wasn't from necessarily a execution or play calling or any of that standpoint. It was very much an effort-based feeling that he felt like they just didn't play hard enough. They didn't play like, he likes to say, with an edge, with a chip on their shoulder. You go back, I mean, it started at the first freaking game last year. After they played Miami, Ohio, he was upset about it, and it continued. South Carolina game, it was like that. The Vanderbilt game is obviously the big one, and I believe there was another one in there that I'm not getting off the top of my head. I think that was a big issue for him, and we heard him say, maybe I'm not connecting with this group. I don't know what's going on. So I think a big point of emphasis for him this offseason is that ish is done, where that's not happening again, and I'm not going to let it happen again. So we heard that when spring ball started, John Clay asked him about if they made any changes kind of to the offseason routine. He said they did make some like winter workout changes to kind of drive up the competitiveness. To me, that's what. And then his statement on Saturday was really all about that. Like we've heard Brad White talk about how like fun this team is to coach, right? They look forward to practice. They practice hard. They're very smart. They're very into football, into competing. And we've heard Liam Cohen say a lot of good things about the offense. And there's been a lot of good early returns about the returnees at receiver, about Devin Leary at quarterback, Ray Davis at tailback. Like there's a lot of good signs, but so that's why Saturday was so weird because we hadn't heard any of that. But to me, it was Snoop sending a message to his team, pretty much saying, we're not doing this again. Like we are going to play hard. We're going to play with an edge. We are not going to come out here and lay eggs. It's not acceptable. And there's a lot of talk about like the standard, Kentucky football standard.
Blue collar.
Yeah. To me, that's what it was. And to me, I think the O-line probably had a bad day. And they can't run the ball, and I think he probably got a little irked about that too. It would be my guess of what happened. Yeah. But mainly what this was we are not doing this again like we did last year. This is not going to happen. And I think that was the overall kind of tone. I think that's what he was trying to deliver, at least from where I'm sitting, where my point of view and what he said in the past. I think that is a big point of emphasis, I think, for him and for the program. It's not what happened last year. They just can't. They don't want that to happen again.
Well, and to that point, the way that Kentucky's team building kind of operated prior to the transfer portal and in all of the kind of rapid roster turnover was you had very much a identity that built up with players kind of stacking, get old, stay old, right? Stacking these classes up on top of one another. Mm-hmm. And you lose some of that when you have so much turnover. I think there was 6 transfers during the first transfer portal window come in. Plenty went out. There will probably be, 3, 4, 5, 6 more in this second transfer portal window. So part of that is making sure you don't lose the identity amid the turnover. And then I think another part of it too, like it is, how many freshmen were contributors last year? 7?
A lot.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like between Deion Walker, Barryon Brown, Dane Key, Caddis, Alex Safari, like on the one hand, you want to build them up, and then but you can't de-recruit them so much that they want to take their talents elsewhere. So I think part of what played into that as well is they might have played a little nice last year, and now from everybody, like if you ask about the receivers, like it's okay, they're good, but even Liam Cohen's like that. It has to be more consistent. They got to be better because they are better than this if they show it. They got to go out there and do it every single day. So yeah, I think that's where some of that factors in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we heard last year about like after the Youngstown State game, like the blocking, like that's probably the maddest we've seen Stoops in a press conference on a Monday. I mean, he walked out. I think he walked out when we asked, like he ended the press conference himself. He was so mad about the receiver blocking.
Yeah, because there was, I forget who exactly it was that whiffed. It might have been Dane or something that you pulled out on tape. And as soon as you mentioned it, he was just like, I got to go rip these guys' ass.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's it is a balance.
It was just a change. It was a change for this program. Having that many freshmen that could play and start. Like, that's how teams that recruit at top 15, top 10 level, that's how they have to operate. Like if you get the players, they got to play if they're good enough. Where Kentucky had more been stat classes, develop, play his junior seniors, where it was a little different last year. And so that was just different. But in the long run, that's going to pay off. Like that these freshmen have played early. And that they banked a lot of good reps. Like I think, like you look at the defensive line position, your best 3, Nick, might be Silver, Deion Walker, and Khalil Saunders, and they're all either true sophomore or redshirt sophomore. So, like, you got a nice little potential core there. Both your off-ball linebackers are juniors. You could be pretty young at cornerback. I mean, Andrew Phillips is still a redshirt junior that has 3 years eligibility left with the COVID year if he wants it.
That's crazy.
And then your other guys are sophomores, Maxwell Hairston and J.Q. Hardaway. And so you got guys that are going to get reps that are pretty young, and I think long-term that can help them. They just had to take some lumps last year and learn the culture. And that was a big talking point on Saturday. We heard Eli Cox talk about it, how, Devin's going to be a leader here, but he's still learning, like, how we do things, right? Like, what is acceptable and what is not, how we kind of operate. And like, to me, Eli talking, it was probably maybe saying like Marcus Cox is going to be a big part of this offensive line, but he's probably learning like how they do things here.
Yeah.
How these younger guys throughout the program learning how guys do things. And that's part of the acclimation of spring. But with the offensive line, like I said from the beginning, like I don't think you should have high expectations, but them just being together and being able to bank reps here.
Yeah.
And as long as these guys are staying healthy, and the big thing I'm going to be looking for Saturday, because we never know about anything like injuries, Nick, but we get a good idea at like these open practices when guys are out of the lineup. And then you're like, oh, maybe they haven't had this guy for a little bit or this or that. And so that's
kind of
something
weird.
we might learn on Saturday.
We found out about Vito when he just wasn't at practice. And it was like, oh, yeah. Kicked him off the team.
Yeah.
But to your point about that offensive line, that was something that Ox noticed today. He's like just having the same guys in there. That's something we've definitely hit on 11 personnel previously about having your kind of core four there. You're still figuring out right tackle, but there is a solid consistency there. I mean, to move on, to kind of put a bow on the Angry Stoops talk, the leadership talk, all that sort of stuff. Like, this isn't a long-term indication, but I think it is. The standard is the standard, but everybody has to know what that standard is. And this is Mark Stoops letting them know.
Transparency. There needs to be transparency, right?
Exactly. And that's why players like him, right? Like, he's not going to just like James Franklin, yappity do his little, like, put on a show for everybody, right? You know what Mark Stoops is thinking, right? He is not shy about it. And from my understanding, from what I heard happened at that practice, a lot of it was just basic practice habits that were not being followed, for the lack of a better term. Like, this is how we do things.
It was a Saturday morning. They were going through the motions. I mean,
yes.
I have a good feeling I know what happened in that practice.
Yeah, the pro day guys are there the night before. You get to sleep in, right? You're not getting up for a 7:30 a.m. practice. It's probably like 10 o'clock start time. So you're hanging out with your guys. You kind of going through the motions. Like, it happens. So I long term, I don't see any issue. But moving forward, I think there have been some, that's one of the many valuable lessons that this team has learned throughout the early portions of spring practice. Tavion Robinson spoke with us this week, and he talked about the lesson he learned last year. And I thought it was very mature of him to go out in public and say, like, when things don't go your way, you can't let it affect what you're giving to the team. And I let that happen last year. He expected to play for Liam Cohen. Said he gets Rich Scangarello. He has a couple big games at the start of the year, but then his role has just slowly diminished throughout the season. And he was upset with it. He wasn't even on the sideline for senior day, I don't think, against Louisville. So he's like, we're moving forward, clean slate, swipe it under the rug. And I think he's not the only one that's going to benefit from having this clean slate. Like Isaiah Cummings could be another guy, right? Where you at least feel like this team is taking their medicine, but there is going to just be those lumps that every team has to go through when you're practicing 15 times and you're not playing anybody, not preparing to play a game.
Yeah, there's been talk about, how this is going to be really good for the receivers overall, just because they're getting so many reps now, where there won't be a ton of reps available in the fall when they get into team settings, because one, you got to get the ass kicker in there. Two, Bates and Jordan Dingle are going to have a big role too as well. So in your personnel packages, you're just not going to have as many reps.
If y'all aren't sure who the ass kicker is, that's Josh Caddis. Okay, we got to get going to be the ass kicker moving forward.
Who's our t-shirt company, Nick? Like, we got to get an ass
Kentucky
kicker
branded.
t-shirt.
Yeah.
We got to get an ass kicker t-shirt.
Ain't signed him up. We just need a stiff arm to the face.
Yeah,
ass kicker.
You already have the picture. I mean, like, you already have the model off that photo. Just do it. I'm making you money. Like, that shirt is just going to sell. Just get ass kicker shirts. Let's do it. What are we waiting on? So, yeah, I think this is important for the receiver. And I've talked about DeKel Crowdis. I think it's a huge spring for him. If Anthony Brown's going to play, I think they're going to know here when they leave spring practice here in a few weeks and wrap up. All of that, it's big for all of those guys, I think. And for Tavion, Like we heard some stuff, not great, about how the end of the year went.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he was the biggest fan of Rich Gangarello. I think he's not in the minority with that. We heard what DeKill said about Gangarello's play calling. So I don't think the receivers in general loved how everything worked out. And Tavion, it's now or never for him, right?
Yeah, right.
He entered last year on the track to have a good year and be a draft pick. And then he had his worst career year as a true senior last year. So now if he's going to get back on that track, he's got to have a big season. I mean, it's a big year. It's a contract year for him in more ways than one.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that self-reflection, like saying that, I think not a lot of guys would do that. So I think that's a good sign for him that he knows last year was not acceptable and he's trying to fix that. Because I guarantee there's some trust he's got to earn. Or he may have earned it back already, but there was some trust probably he had to earn back in that building and some things he probably had to do for him to, I'm sure they were happy to have him back, but how it ended last year, that's not, you talk about the standard as a standard. That's not the standard.
No, not at all.
And so it's at least good to hear that things are progressing in the right way. And I think that's kind of the power of Cohen too, man. He's just got guys believe and buy in to him, and they're coached way different. Like you're just going to see that on Saturday, how he's just more of he comes off as very player friendly coach, I think. But he knows when to push buttons. I think he does a good job of when to get on a guy and when to not. And he's got a really good grasp, I think, seeing him in practice settings of really kind of coaching the whole group. Where not just being the quarterback guy, not just being the supervisor overseeing, it's really being very hands-on.
Because you even though he is a coordinator, you want that from your position. That's Mark Stoops is supposed to be the supervisor, that's kind of back and then interjects when need be. And I think the other thing with Liam too is he's not some omnipotent, I just know better than you. He's very willing to admit when he messes up, and I that sort of vulnerability is also relatable, and it makes you know that you're on the same page, right? That the players
Absolutely.
and coaches are all on the same page together. So I'm excited. Before we could get into a rundown of kind of players that if you haven't seen them before could really pop when you're at practice. We'll get to that in a minute, but I do want to go over some more spring practice intel of just kind of what we've heard and what we've learned about this team so far. While you gather your thoughts, I just think it's important to note that Ray Davis is a very good scheme fit, and it took 2 weeks, which I think is a reasonable amount of time, but it took him a little bit. But I think he finally has picked up the flow of where to find holes with the offensive line because, as he said, if you take a step in the wrong direction, the play will break a different way. They've seen some growth this week, and part of it that took even longer is they don't have the ass kicker in there. They don't have Brendan Bates. It helps playing outside zone with those dudes on the edge to be able to open up some cutback lanes. So I think, I'm still kind of to your point about the offensive line. Are they going to be top 5 Joe Moore Award finalists? No. But the running game is certainly starting to look more like the running game that Kentucky fans expect to see from a Mark Stoops football team.
Yes. Just for those who read KSR Plus, about his scheme fit already. We talked about had an article about Davis earlier, kind of describing why he fits Kentucky, and pretty much it's just he's the similar mold of kind of tier backs. Rodriguez, Snell, and Ray Davis would be kind of in the same tier. If I was ranking them, I'd probably have Davis 3, but he fits just what they want. He comes from a zone-heavy scheme at Vanderbilt, and he just has good feel, vision, and kind of understanding of how to work and how to find the creases and the cracks, when to slow down, when to speed up, when to stay patient. And on contact, he does a good job of moving his body. He's not really, I would say, just a total thumper. He's going to knock people over, but he does a good job of just sliding, shifting his feet, spinning on contact to allow himself to fall forward and get an extra yard, half yard, 1.5 yards. Then those add up, I think, over time. He just fits what Kentucky wants. I think last year, Nick, outside of Rodriguez, there was a lot of running into linemen's backs. Right. There was a lot of like the feel wasn't great with some of the other guys on the roster. Of when to go, when to attack, when to get north and south, when to maybe wait a little bit, hesitate on a run. They played like an inexperienced running back room last year. And this year, I think Davis is going to at least give them a certain level of floor, I think, with him in the lineup. If you know what you're going to get a little bit with him. Do I think Ray Davis is going to be an all-SEC tailback here? No, but I think he raises the floor of the group, and I think when he's in the game and if it's blocked right, he's going to get you the yards expected. If you pick up everything, he's going to get you 5, 6, 7. If a linebacker runs the wrong way, he can go get you 12, 15. Or if the linebacker takes a bad angle, he can go get you 12, 15. He's not going to bust off a 50-yard gain. I don't think at any point, but he's going to get you what you blocked for. And Kentucky didn't get that a lot of times last year, early in the season. That they had things blocked up that they didn't gain the yards they needed to on that. And I think that in turn, that kind of hurt the offensive line early in the season. When you're doing some things right and you still aren't gaining yards, and then everybody just kind of points to you, that can kind of hurt a group's confidence. And I think what Davis assures you is he's going to get you the yards you need. And get in a situation for him in an offense where you need to churn out a few first downs, you've got a back, I think, that they feel confident can do that. And so I think he fits a lot of needs for Kentucky. And I think there's reasons to be excited for him. Like he's never reached 5 yards per rush, Nick, in his career. He's been under 5 every year, 2 years at Temple, 2 years at Vanderbilt. But you can make the case Vanderbilt offensive line was worse than Kentucky's last year. And in their 2 SEC wins, he had huge games against Kentucky and Florida. And so if he can give you a couple of those 100-yard games, and he had another big game against South Carolina. So he did some damage against SEC defenses behind maybe not the greatest offensive line play. So that gives you at least something to look forward to, I think, next year.
On the chat, Kentucky Cats asked about Grant Bingham's development. A guy who is known to play angry and with an edge. Is he doing that? Bingham's a classic Kentucky football recruit.
Slow cooker.
Yeah. You don't expect anything till he's year 3. And if he was going to play a role this fall, I think Tanner Bowles bringing him in kind of, for lack of a better term, took that spot bucket.
He was second on the depth chart for the Music City Bowl. But the Bowles thing is big here. Like you said, Eli Cox shifting back to right guard, kind of drops him down a peg.
Yeah, you added Horsey back to his spot. It's just going to.
Yes. So, right. You added 2 guys, right? That hurts him. And I think he's clearly behind Paul Rodriguez. I think Yenzer kind of likes Paul Rodriguez.
And Rodriguez, too, is what?
He's a year older.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of how this thing works. So it just takes some time. So, but I'm not
this is going to be
worried at all.
Grant, it's another development year for Grant Bingham. Do not expect him to play many snaps this year. And then we'll see next spring where he's at. But he's in the slow cooker development plan. And so we'll see next year where he's at. And that's really kind of where he stands from where I'm sitting.
If there's one other big kind of thing you've learned about the team this spring practice, what would that be?
I'm really high on the defense, man. Like, I think they can be pretty good. Cornerback is kind of a worry.
Right.
Kind of be opposite Phillips. But safety, I think you should feel very good. Like, I don't know if Jordan Lovett, Zion Childress, or Jalen Geiger, any of those are like top of the line SEC safeties, Nick, but they're all like, if you're for those Madden players, they're all like 75, 76, 77 rating, right? Where they're just like rock solid, like you don't worry about, if you're playing Madden, that guy's he's not missing a bunch of tackles or getting burned. Like they're doing what they're supposed to do. And I think you got 3 of them back there and you can kind of tinker with them. I think Geiger could play some nickel for you. And then you got Alex Afari, who I think is going to be kind of your essential off-ball Sam linebacker, who's going to play their medium position. He's going to be a big part of the defense. So, like that safety position, they can do a lot of different things. You just look at that defensive line, man. They're going to be huge on that defensive line. And not necessarily from a mass standpoint. They are going to be big. I mean, Deion Walker, Keyshawn Silver, and Josiah Hayes is 315 plus, but lengthwise.
Yeah, a lot of length.
You could play a defensive line of Cliff Saunders at filled in, Deion Walker at boundary tackle, Keyshawn Walker at nose. Those are all guys 6'4", 6'5", with long arms. Like that's just kind of what they want, I think, in this scheme, and I think that can make a big difference and make things easier for those 2 off-ball linebackers. Then you got J.J. Weaver, who I think if he stays healthy, he'll just be a very good edge defender. Whether he bolsters the pass rush a ton is to be determined, but he is very, very good at setting the edge against the run. And then, like we talked about at safety, and then Brad. I mean, we know how, at least I feel, and you feel about Brad White. I mean, he's up there if you were going to rank coordinators in college football. And so you add all that together, I just think there's a lot to like. And staff continuity too, like with White. All the defensive coaches are back.
Yeah.
They didn't lose any defensive coach. And, there was a thought maybe they can move on from 2. They decided to re-up with Anwar Stewart and Chris Collins for 2 more years. Mike Stoops is in year 2 as a linebackers coach. Bafano, what's this, his 3rd year as a full-time position coach?
Sounds right, yeah.
And so everything is in place on that side. I just think, like, this should be a legitimate top 25 defense again, no doubt about it. And now that you can bank that and kind of Sharpie that in there, to me, then that's the offense. If you can get the offense to the top 35, top 30 level, then you're like pushing top 15 team. And the top 15 team is a team that can go win 10 games. And so I think really the news, like we all know the offense potential and it's got to put it together, but the defense being what it is, what I've seen so far, I think is really kind of the story for me because they have at least one side of the ball where I feel good about them being top 25. And if the offense can approach that level, you add those 2 things together, that's a top 15 team. A top 15 team with Kentucky's schedule can make a run at 10 wins.
Well, and I want to talk about some players in particular on that defensive side that you might not be accustomed to seeing make plays when you go to spring practice this Saturday. But first, I do need to tell you about our friends at Louisville City FC. They're facing Lexington SC. That's right, Louisville versus Lexington. The 2 sides are colliding at Lynn Family Stadium Wednesday, April 5th, 7 p.m. in the second round of the U.S. Open Cup. Luckett, this is the one thing that's very cool about soccer. They have the tournaments where it's just like every league versus each other. And the U.S. Open Cup, it just throw them all in a pot, mix them up. It doesn't matter if you play in front of 100 fans or 100,000. They're all playing against each other in the U.S. Open Cup, which Louisville City's done pretty well in the past. They've made it as far as the quarterfinals, and last year they won 3 games in the tournament. A lot of exciting action in Butchertown. And now you can go watch the 2 teams from Kentucky collide. That's Wednesday, April 5th, 7 p.m. Don't miss it on the pitch. And listen to this deal, too. $2 beers in the fan zone before the match. I mean,
can't beat it.
Any better than that? No, I don't think so. Call 502-LOU-CITY or visit loucity.com/tickets to get into the game at Lynn Family Stadium. Awesome venue right there in Butchertown, right? You see it when you go by 64. The end zone area, too, where you can kind of just belly up. They got like this huge bar area. Very cool. So if you haven't checked it out, do so next Wednesday. It's spring break. You probably don't have any plans yet. So be a nice night to go watch Louisville City FC versus Lexington SC. Get your tickets at loucity.com/tickets. Luckett. Players, numbers you need to know. You already know about number 0, Big Deion Walker. He's a big son bitch. There's no other way to put it. If you haven't gone up, like if you don't get there early to the games, if you're up in the upper deck and you just see from afar, be there and just stand on the sideline when he walks out. Dude is a monster. Same thing with Silver. Like those two guys, you got to see them. I just don't know any other way to put it other than they're enormous, and you're going to want to just size them up in person. That alone gets the hamster wheels turning in my head, just like, oh my God.
Two things guaranteed to happen on Saturday. One, fans saying, "Oh my goodness, Deion Walker is huge." Two, I didn't think Devin Leary is a lot smaller than I thought he'd be. That'll be two conversations. Two things that'll happen in 50, 60 conversation groups, at least on Saturday.
Your group chats with all your friends. How they
those
look,
two things
man,
will be discussed.
Can't believe Leary's that small. It's like, well, he's just not. I mean, we saw those pictures of Levis. The dude looked like a freaking bodybuilder. You know, like you just can't. You aren't getting that with every quarterback. But the other number that I really want you to focus on when you're watching the defense, I know that's not always the sexiest. So, you like watching the receivers catch passes. When they go team period, just watch number 11, Zion Childress, flying around the ball, maybe talking a little bit of smack. He has been, if I have kind of how Jordan Lovett was for me a year ago, where I was like, okay, this is the guy that's taken the leap. That's Zion Childress this year. He's going to be a player for him. He's not shy either. He's a chatty Cathy. He was a guy they added in the spring kind of portal window before it was the thing last year. It took him a while to kind of get his feet under him, right? He kind of admitted he didn't know defense that well at Texas State. He was a quarterback that switched sides of the football. He was just a true second-year player in the Sun Belt, and now he just knows defense better. He roomed with Ty Asian on the road trips. He kind of stuck to him like glue to find more, to learn more about the offense, learn how to watch film, what you're watching for. And so I think that guy is going to be, I don't know if star, because like you said, are they going to be in all SEC players? I don't know, but what I do know is he's going to be a solid football player that's going to have his nose around the football a lot this fall. So keep an eye on number 11 this Saturday.
Yeah, just in his career, 37 games, 15 starts, 169 tackles. He's played over 1,700 defensive snaps, 11 pass breakups, 1 interception. Like he's just played a lot of football. Mm-hmm. In the year, Nick, he made some plays that popped. Like the Georgia game, there's a few plays. I've clipped them in an article I wrote about Childress this week. He makes a great tackle on Brock Bowers, open field. He fits the run on 2nd and goal against Georgia. And then he has that blitz he times a blitz up perfectly against Louisville and gets Malik Cunningham on the ground in space. Cunningham was one of the most elusive players in college football, no matter what you think about him the last few years as a runner. And so there's some moments with him where it's like, oh, he can do some things. And you mentioned the football IQ part as he grows in that aspect, that should only enhance his strengths as a player. And yeah, I mean, he's a guy everybody talks glowingly about. To me, one of the more pleasant surprises, I think, has been Jagger Burton in the pivot as he moves to center. We're just hearing some good things about him. And I think with Jagger last year, Nick, he struggled in pass protection. PFF he gave up 15 hurries and 6 sacks. He was Kentucky, one of their weakest pass protectors on the team. And Kentucky shifted more to like a gap. They were more gap than zone last year in the run game, and I don't think that was necessarily Jagger's strength because that's more vertical drive block, move bodies, where he was always more an athletic zone kind of lineman.
Cut out half, cut their body in half, just get your butt around him.
So, yeah, with Cohen coming in, they're going to be more zone run team, I would expect. And in pass protection, he's not at center. He's not going to have to deal with kind of explosive defensive tackles. It's more he's going to go against more road graders, and he's going to be more asked to help.
Yeah, help. Keep your eye on the blitz, right?
So you add those two things up. He's going to at center. There's more movement level blocking, whether it's reach blocks. They're going to probably use him as a puller, climb into the second level, and then in pass protection, the ability to just straight up power anchor against big time, quick, athletic, powerful rushers. It's not going to be needed as much. He still have to do it, but not as much. I think that adds up for him. He's a redshirt sophomore. He could be a multi-year answer at center. Sounds like things are going well for him. I think that's a real big sign because if you get Cox and Horsey back at guard, Eli Cox, that is, at their natural positions, you get Burton in there to solve the center position. Then you got that interior three we talked about. We thought it would be fine last year, and it never really was. Well, now maybe they have the answers for that this year in 2023, and then it's just figuring out things at tackle.
Which, when you go to practice, that watching offensive line play can be tough, especially to the untrained eye. So how they kind of have this practice structured, right? You're going to start with an individual, like, there's obviously wrinkles to every practice, but it starts with individuals. And I always like watching the running backs because their footwork is going 100 miles an hour, and they usually do that close to where the fans will be on the side of the field. So that's kind of an easy thing to follow there. Then there'll be a portion of one-on-ones, which the receiver, like that's where you get the fun, receivers versus cornerbacks. The cornerbacks, I think, are at an obvious mismatch. They don't know where it's going. You're kind of putting them out on an island there, and you've got a quarterback as accurate as Devin Leary. It doesn't take much for just give them an inch, and they'll take it. But those matchups with Barryon Brown, like having him against Maxwell Harrison, Drew Phillips, who do have I'm not going to say the same kind of speed, but they can keep up, right? So those will be very fun matchups. So during the one-on-one portions, while you do get a fired-up line at sometimes, right, like when JJ's going up against Marcus Cox or something like that, you'll get a bunch of emotion from those guys. The one-on-ones, the trash talk between those guys on the edges at receiver, that's where your focus needs to be then, because it's just a lot of chatter, right? A lot of chatter between those groups. You'll probably get some dudes in each other's faces. It's fun. It's good, clean, wholesome fun.
Yeah, and I think what you want, like in team period, here's what you want to watch if you're, especially in the run game with the offensive line. Like, are you seeing a lot of leakage? Is the defensive line just guys that not named Deion Walker? Are they getting behind the line of scrimmage and raising hell? If that's happening, that's not a great sign. Is it just a lot of 1-2 yard runs, or are they able to crease them and get a gain?
Get to that second level. Right.
Is there any movement at all? Right. Do you notice at all centers or guard getting to a linebacker and getting their hands on them? Or are linebackers running free and making tackles? That is really what you're looking for. Big number 0 is going to make plays on everybody.
Right. He's that good.
So I don't worry about him. I wouldn't say that's I wouldn't say that's necessarily a bad sign for the offensive line. It's actually a good sign. If he's doing that, that's all right. He's got a chance to be a game wrecker for the defense. But the other guys, are they getting blocks? Are their double teams getting some level or movement? Are they able to find creases and gain positive plays? Or is the defense winning every rep? I mean, that's really kind of what you're looking for in the run game. And the pass pro can just be kind of hard in a team setting because quarterback's not live.
Right. If you're asked about the pass rush today, and he's like, "Well, they haven't let us tackle the quarterback yet, so I don't know."
Yeah, you don't really know about because there's going to be an individual drill where they'll have. Where I come from, we called it Blood Alley. I don't know what it's called. I'm sure it's got another name. Where you just it's just one-on-ones, and even that's not a realistic kind of.
Yeah.
Defenses
it doesn't game like. Yeah.
Defenses can create one-on-ones with their structure, but a lot of times it's not like you're getting help from somewhere or the other, or you're just not you can't do an inside rip because you're just going to barrel into the center's show. Like the center is going to be right there. And so that it creates one-on-ones. And so what you can do, so the coaches they find out what you can do in a one-on-one. But that's not necessarily real. Like, that's heavy. That's leaned towards the defense a little bit. And so if an offensive lineman is winning in that drill, that's a pretty good sign consistently if they're able to win in pass rush sets and pass pro sets. And so that's one you could watch. And then obviously the team drill and the run game, that's another one you should watch. You'll get a lot of that. Like they'll have a run drill where it's just linemen And then they'll have obviously the team scrimmage, and I would imagine they'll probably go long on the scrimmage here. I really don't even know. It might just be a scrimmage practice. Like we might get a full scrimmage. I don't even know if we're going to get necessarily the individuals like we usually do in a practice.
I was told today they were planning on scrimmaging. So
that makes sense. So you won't even get the team, the individual stuff. We'll just get full on team. I would imagine they'll probably do a 7-on-7 period and then a full on scrimmage.
The 7-on-7 period. Just watch Devin Leary fitting the ball in between the
ball
safeties
placement.
and corners. Yeah, his ball placement's incredible. Prepare to be wowed by that. And then I don't know how much they will do because of, it's the scrimmage day, right? They might take away some of the special teams time. But that little drill where they have the gunners flying at the returners, that's just fun. It's just fun. Which brings me to a question that we've gotten often in the chat is, who's going to be Kentucky's place kicker? And that is a question that we don't know the answer to. I will say Chance Poore was he was hitting them when we were at the facility the other day.
Accurate, yeah.
But that could be something, as Stoop said on KSR today, which if you haven't listened to it, go check out the podcast. The portal's going to be open game again, and they want to keep people, but they have an opportunity to bring some in. Kicker could be one of those positions. Right tackle is another one, and then you look at depth pieces, and middle linebacker seems like one of them right now because there's just guys get hurt there, and you don't have a ton there.
Right tackle.
And then
right tackle.
Yeah, you got to get one of those. So those are kind of the three that I'll be looking at. They have 3 spots. I would imagine that they have a little bit of attrition at 1 or 2 or 3 more guys leave.
I would expect some offensive line attrition here, Nick.
Yeah.
They've got, let's see here. They've got 15 offensive linemen on scholarship. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. They got 9 quarterbacks. Some guys are young. Maybe we don't see it here, but at some point there's going to be some attrition in that room. So those would be 2 positions potentially I will watch. 13 defensive linemen too. That's another one where I could see a guy or two maybe decide to leave.
What has been encouraging there, though, Josiah Hayes has seemingly got his stuff together, which he needed to with Justin Rogers leaving. And as Brad White said today, you've been here long enough, you've played enough football, time to turn it on. And not everybody responds to that, but Hayes has been taking that medicine appropriately.
Yeah, I think if you were going to go to the KSR transfer portal consulting firm for this decision, I would say Kentucky probably goes and finds a new starting place kicker, and I think they're hoping to try to find a starting caliber right tackle here in May. I think those are the top 2 goals. Yeah. Then I think scholarship capital wise, Nick, they're going to be at 82. And so they're going to have, and if you lose a couple guys, you're going to have room to spend on scholarships. Now there's probably going to want to reward some walk-ons on the team.
Yeah. And
with
also,
some scholars.
You don't want to use up too many scholarships. Like you could just save those scholarships for recruiting. You know what I mean? So you do have to factor that into the equation.
And so you can, my thing is they have room available if like a quarterback pops open.
Yeah, 1 year guy or something, or 2, or a little bit of a project that loses in one of those spring competitions.
And that gets me to this around the SEC segment. I've done some digging this week, gathered some intel. At Georgia, Nick, like Carson Beck's probably going to win that job, but early reports are that like Mike Bobo is really big on Gunnar Stockton, a redshirt freshman. I think they're from like the same neck of the woods in Georgia. So what that would do is if Gunnar Stockton emerges as like QB2 there, that puts Brock Vandegrift in an interesting situation. Former 5-star recruit, believe he'll be a redshirt sophomore this year. He's a guy to watch. I could see entering the portal in May, and that's going to be an evaluation that a lot of schools are going to need to make on him to see if maybe they want to take a flyer on him. So that's one to watch. Down at Florida, Nick, it sounds like Keontae Goodwin's running with the 2s at right tackle. So he's somewhere there. There was early reports that Graham Mertz was slinging it and killing it at Florida, but after their first scrimmage, it's been reported that it sounds like there's going to be from our Gators Online team and on 3, there's a Jack Miller. But I would expect Mertz to be the quarterback there. But it's not. I don't think it's a slam dunk. And then at Missouri wrapped up spring camp like 2 weeks ago.
Them damn App State guys, they don't want nothing to do with spring ball.
I was unaware, so I was like, oh, there's really no intel to get because spring practice is closed. But doing some.
That's just stupid because you're wasting recruiting opportunities by getting it over with so fast.
Yeah, maybe it's a thing. Cardinals baseball, it's pretty big up there, so maybe they just want to get it done before.
Then go to the Busch Stadium.
And they do something where the spring game is tied into some type of event up there in March. So they have like the spring game on that day. I can't remember what it's called. So they've always, I think, operated to get it done early. They couldn't have rain. They couldn't have a spring game, so they had to move to the indoor and just kind of do like a live scrimmage there because of the weather or something. I don't know. But at Missouri,
bad weather in Missouri in March.
At Missouri, Nick, like they've got this new offense coordinator, Kirby Moore, Kellen Moore's younger brother, came from Fresno State. Brady Cook's out. He had shoulder labrum surgery. By all accounts, the quarterbacks kind of struggled, and the offense struggled during spring. And like the defense won everything. But the defense is on paper should be pretty good. They got a very good secondary. They've got some pretty good guys on the defensive line. Blake Baker did a really good job with that group. So that's kind of where Missouri's at. So yeah, I mean they're a team that I could see maybe taking a look at quarterback in the portal if someone comes open, for sure. And then Auburn, everybody remembers Kentucky beat out Auburn for Devin Leary.
People do remember that. I think Auburn fans get that.
Hugh Freeze is giving multiple interviews and giving quotes about how he's not super pleased with the state of quarterback right now.
Oh, and you mean Robbie Ashford isn't good enough to start quarterbacking the SEC?
And he's mentioned in a quote, I think a story where Ross Dellinger wrote this week for Sports Illustrated, that we missed on two guys in the we had a couple guys in on the portal that we missed on. One was Leary, and the other was Coastal Carolina quarterback Grayson McCall, who was like I don't know,
weird,
a transcripts issue. Yeah, why he couldn't transfer, and so that has put them in a little bit of
academic prowess of Coastal Carolina is costing their quarterbacks.
And the signs are there. Like the signs are there with Freeze. Like he's telling everybody to bet the season win total under. He's saying that like their roster just has a long way to go. Now that could be total coach speak, but there's not like. You kind of look at what the team did the past year, and there's some talent issues there at Auburn. You're pulling up this quote right here. We have a ways to go to close the talent gap, Free says. I know how that comes across, and it's probably hurtful for some to hear in the locker room, but that doesn't mean I don't care about them. We're going to coach the heck out of them. They are ours. The truth of it is, from just watching workouts, we don't have the SEC-type depth right now that some others are playing with for whatever reason. One, he's just like throwing big-time pot shots at Brian Harsin.
Yeah, for not being able to recruit, right?
Two, like the recruiting, Kentucky's got recruiting wins against them. And like this would have been a good year to have Auburn on the schedule. Unfortunately, Kentucky draws Alabama, so that's just kind of where I think everything is sitting, kind of digging into some things. Missouri has offensive issues. Florida is going to have some offensive issues potentially. And Florida's a team I just don't know. Like it smells like it could be a 5-7 type team. And you look up their schedule. They play Utah and Florida State in the non-con. Both are going to be top 15, top 20 teams. They have to go to Kentucky. They have to go to South Carolina. They got Georgia in the neutral. I'm trying to think who they play I think they maybe draw Arkansas or Ole Miss out of the West, one of those two. Then plus LSU. I think they have to go to LSU this year. Like this schedule it's a brutal schedule for them. And offensively, they have some young freshmen that are going to be good. I think specifically a receiver. But yeah, I wouldn't feel great about them. That's one. Like when you see season win total under, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like 6. I think that'll catch a lot of people off guard. Florida's at 6, but a lot of signs are pointing to them having potentially another losing season, which will be, I think, the 3rd losing season in a row.
Oh, gosh, it's just so disheartening. Oh no, really just rips my heart out, makes me sad. But you did bring up recruiting. We need to wrap up with some recruiting talk. And you mentioned Auburn because could have a nice battle brewing with, I'm going to butcher his name. We'll just call him Shaq McCroy. A big 6'8", 340-pound offensive tackle that was on campus earlier this week from Pinson, Alabama. That's right in Auburn's prime recruiting territory. And Kentucky was the first to offer. He said he describes UK as his day one school, and feels like the Cats are in a really good place there. And they're having another big four-star offensive tackle visit on Saturday. So, we were talking just between us, like, man, it's been kind of quiet on recruiting, and it's almost like their ears were burning over there at the facility because we've been hearing some good news, right? Because offensive tackle was a position that they've struggled to get their right guys, swings and misses with Goodwin, etc. They needed to get tackles in this class. They're teeing it up to move in the right direction, not only with offensive tackles, but there's also an encouraging quarterback development today. Jake Merklinger committed to Tennessee. Why is that a good thing for the University of Kentucky?
Yeah, on McRoy, I think that's Ginzer's running that recruitment, and he's got ties in Alabama. He's from there. Mm-hmm. We saw him go down there and land Khalifa Keith early before he kind of blew up. Like, I think that's a big recruitment for him. If he could get the kid, that would be huge, I think. And then, right. Okay, Jake Merker, top 100 quarterback from Georgia, class of 24, scheduled to commit Tennessee today. I think that's happened already.
It just popped, yeah, while we were on there.
Jaden Davis is another high four-star quarterback. Michigan is a heavy favorite. He's scheduled to commit tomorrow, March 31st. Why is that important? The recruitment of Cutter Boley, the top schools have consistently been Kentucky, Tennessee, Michigan, with Notre Dame kind of lurking in fourth place. There is a thought that Boley could look to reclassify 2024.
Yes.
Even if he doesn't, they just took two top 100 caliber guys, two top-of-the-line quarterbacks. Signs are pointing, Nick, to Cutter Boley committing to Kentucky soon. I have logged a RPM recruiting prediction machine pick on our On3 database today, and Nick had logged one about 3 weeks ago on RPM day for On3. What we are kind of hearing and reading the tea leaves is that this is going to happen, and potentially even soon. Per our database, Nick, Boley has visited 4 times this month. He's been in Lexington 4 times. You add up need for the position, Boley could potentially play pretty early here. He's on record. He really likes Cohen a lot.
Right.
That connection is strong. Multiple recent visits, competition taking other targets. I think it's aligning for Kentucky to get a commitment from Cutter Boley here soon. And Nick, that's going to be the first high 4-star quarterback recruit to commit to them. Blue chip prospect since Drew Barker. I mean, that decade. He's got a chance to be the highest ranked quarterback Kentucky has added from high school in the internet era. We'll see how the final rankings shake out, but he's top 25 in the On3 industry ranking right now, which balances out everybody. So he's borderline 5-star prospect now. And so that's where he's at, and could, if he has a big finish, he could finish pretty highly ranked. And that's just a huge development, because we talked about it when Cohen was hired. He needs to score points on Saturday, but job 1A is to fix the quarterback recruiting, mainly high school. Can't go in the portal every year. Got to get some guys from high school and develop them.
So there's going to be the Athletic crunched the numbers, and 70% of the top 50 quarterbacks quarterbacks in the top 50 over a 4-year period transferred. Half of the SEC started transfers last year. But you got to land some high school talent. It's inevitable. But here's the tricky part is you got to land the good ones, because, no offense to some of the other guys, but that becomes more of a coin flip. I know Bo Allen was a 4-star in one service, but if you average him out, he was 461, right? And 461 is that's where you have either you could have a Josh Caddis or a Benny Snell that really pops and blows up. But a lot of times guys in that recruiting ranking in that range, they just never play. And the only reason why we pay more attention is because it's at a position of need. And Kentucky just, for the lack of a better term, for whatever, blame it on whatever you want, they have not recruited to the caliber. And rankings aren't the end all be all. Now Boley has to go prove it. He has to gain weight. He's got to work on some things. And a lot of the reason why he's ranked as high as he is because he excels in a 7-on-7 league, right? With his good 7-on-7 team. That's different than real football. So, like, there's no guarantee that if Cutter Boley commits to Kentucky, he's going to be a top 3 quarterback in the SEC and end up being in the NFL draft. That's not what we're saying. But he's at least of the caliber where those are the kind of guys that play on Saturdays in the SEC. He's got the tools, he has the potential and the skill set to get there at some point, and where you don't have to rely on the portal every year because Kentucky's lucky, but you can have swings and misses a la Joey Gatewood.
Yeah, just first things first. In today's landscape, the quarterbacks you're talking about that Kentucky's been getting, they just get recruited over. Like Will Levis is a perfect example of this. Like he goes to Penn State, was like this mid to high 3-star prospect with high upside, but he was never going to really play at Penn State because Clifford was ranked higher. It was a bigger recruiting win. They had him just as a better prospect evaluated. And then if something ever happened to Clifford, they could just go in the portal and get a guy. Like it was probably going to be hard for Levis to ever play there. And the guys Kentucky have getting, they're just going to always recruit over them with transfers. Now that they can go and get transfers, it's just always going to happen. And so if you don't, so you have to get the guys you think are good right away, and they're going to play like early. Like Cutter Boley is going to play. Like he'll probably be a starter in year 2. If he's not, he's going to want to leave. Like that's just how the game is played right now.
Yeah.
And so for Kentucky, at least you have like you can always go get a transfer, Nick. Like you can always evaluate him, and if he's not it, you can always go get a transfer and change. Now they have more options. And another thing getting a quarterback like this does, when you get a quarterback of this caliber, it helps you recruit the rest of your class. Guys want to play with dudes like this. And so he's going to attract talent. Like when they got Drew Barker in the fold, that helped that become a top 25 recruiting class back then. Mm-hmm. There's, Louisville, Pierre Clarkson last year. It's a perfect example of that. Like he's going to attract players. And if you get him in the fold super early, like this potentially could do, it could really help you build some big recruiting momentum in 24 and 25 and start to get things rolling. And so it's just a big deal from multiple aspects. One, it answers you get a high upside guy that big time schools wanted, and you get him as kind of your potential franchise cornerstone quarterback. Mm-hmm. 2, you give yourself options down the road when you have to replace the guy after Leary, because they're going to have to go to portal again to replace the guy after Leary.
And that, like a Vandergrift guy who's 3 years in, that could be a perfect.
Yeah, I mean, watch what happens
in between,
Watch what happens at Alabama with Jalen Monroe and Ty Simpson. I think Saban's going to slow play that. That's probably going to be a decision after the season. Ohio State, Devin Brown, and what's the other guy's name? The guy from Philly that I like, Kyle McCord. So, just watching all of those and seeing how all those develop. And then, so it gives you recruiting bump. Cool. It gives you options at quarterback, and then it helps your recruiting. Like it's a win-win-win on a lot of different levels. And it helps eliminate, like they can't recruit quarterback, whatever. You get an in-state prospect like this. It's a big deal, I think, in-state. To really create some buzz, and it's just a big deal overall, and it's another big win, I think, for Cohen. Like, he just keeps stacking these big wins, and it'll just be a great development, I think, overall for the program. It will really create some buzz. And, Nick, last year they had no buzz recruiting. Like, we went months with, like, what's going on here?
It closed hard, but, it was a little dry there in the summer. One other thing, too, to consider – they're recruiting Stone Sanders and Ryan Montgomery, who Montgomery's supposed to be on campus today. If I don't know how Boley would go about it, but if he said straight out, like, I'm reclassifying, like you could still recruit those guys conceivably, right? So like it doesn't eliminate those options either. So hopefully Boley gets the dice out, gives it a good old roll. We're hearing good things. It's nice. It's nice. We were a little worried about the recruiting buzz or lack thereof. And things are seemingly moving in the right direction. I put a RPM pick in this week for Gavin Grover too. Kentucky has some other tight end options, but it feels like I'm not going to shoot my shot, but like if you could see that being all right, let's start picking up some momentum in June, and then Grover
get the ball rolling in Ohio.
Exactly, because there are a lot of talented dudes. Terry Nichols was a guy, like, shout out to Vince for getting on that guy early because he was like a top 300 guy that didn't have much buzz at all. He was on campus this week, so things are moving in the right direction, Mr. Luckett. Things are moving in the right direction.
No doubt.
So I think this is where we leave you. We're going to go, but we're going to take NBC Bank with us with the Go NBC app. Make sure you download it. Bank on your phone, bank anywhere. 128 years of experience. Your local bank, Monticello Bank. And Luckett, you will be out at spring practice today. Unfortunately, I have it's spring break. I've got some family stuff pre-planned, so I will be handling Mark Stoops' comments. Hopefully, he's not as pissed off this time around. But you'll be our eyes and ears on the ground. Stephen Peak will have highlights there. We'll have plenty of photos as well of the practice. So plenty of coverage. Go say hi to Luckett. The blue light's open. It's all free. If it's bad weather, they'll move it inside. They got some bleachers in there. It's not as big as it will be once they get the field house redone. But should be an exciting time. If you don't have spring plans, to go watch the Wildcats in action this Saturday, starting at 11:45. Gates open at 11:15. So let's get out of here. For Adam Luckett, I'm Nick Roush. Go Cats and go Crow Green.